Welcome to the Better Behavior Show with Dr. Nicole Beurkens, best-selling author, psychologist, nutritionist, and mom, where we'll be discussing ways to improve your child's attention, anxiety, mood, and behavior with simple strategies you can use right now. The following discussion is for educational purposes only and not intended to diagnose or treat any disorder. Please do not apply any of this information without first speaking with your doctor. Now, let's head to the show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm Dr. Nicole, and on today's episode, I'm thrilled to be talking with the one and only Janet Lansbury about how to calmly and confidently parent our children, even in the midst of behavioral challenges. I followed Janet's work for a while now, and I find that the approach that she teaches and the examples that she provides are right on the mark when it comes to young children, as well as children who are developmentally young, due to neurodevelopmental issues, emotional or behavioral kinds of disorders. Janet focuses on children under 5, but the principles are applicable to parenting no matter what the age of the child. So the things we're going to discuss really get at the heart of what it means to help children develop emotional and behavioral regulation, as well as healthy relationships, communication, and thinking skills. I can't wait to dive into the conversation, but let me first tell you a little bit more about Janet. Her respectful parenting advice at her website, janetlansbury.com, is quoted and shared by millions of readers worldwide. Inspired by the pioneering philosophy of her friend and mentor, Magda Gerber, Janet encourages parents and child care professionals to perceive babies as unique, capable human beings with natural abilities to learn without being taught, to develop motor and cognitive skills, communicate, face age-appropriate struggles, initiate and direct independent play for extended periods, and much more. She's the author of 2 best-selling books, Elevating Childcare, A Guide to Respectful Parenting, and No Bad Kids, Toddler Discipline Without Shame. Janet is also the creator and host of Janet Lansbury Unruffled, one of the most downloaded parenting podcasts on the web and recommended listening by the Washington Post. She also enjoys teaching weekly classes at RIE, consulting with parents and professionals, and spending time with her 3 children, ages 26, 22, and 17. Janet, it's such an honor to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you so much. And thanks for all your kind words. I'm honored to be here.
I have been so looking forward to this conversation because not a day goes by when I don't see a post on your social media or your podcast and just go, yes, more people need to hear this. So I'm really excited to dive in. And I'd love to have you start by talking about what this model of RIE, what RIE is, and how you became interested in it.
Sure. So I became interested in it. Well, it sort of goes together. So I became interested because I was a new parent who thought this was going to be the beginning of the best part of my life. And indeed, looking back, it has been. But at the time, so this is 27 years ago. My daughter's 27, my oldest, I have 3 now. And at that time, there were kind of 2 different camps that you could read about or hear about. One was the super baby stimulation camp. Did you ever hear about that?
Uh-huh.
Where you stimulate and you're the one that gets your baby to be the smartest, best baby. And there was a book that I read on that said, at this age, here's what you do to stimulate, and this age, which was basically it was an empty vessel kind of approach that we had to do the work to fill in. And then there was another approach that was more what my family would say to me that other camps were saying, which is, just, you know everything, you know how to do this. Just go with your instincts and do it. You've got this. You have mothering instincts. Just, do what you feel. So I didn't feel that coming on as I go. I was waiting, and suddenly I thought this time that I was so geared towards and really excited about, that I was a failure at it. And then I was trying to do this stimulation thing with my infant, where I thought I had to kind of keep her, looking at something and busy all her waking hours. And of course, anybody that's had a child knows that you're going to not make it very soon if you're busy with your baby, because they have so many needs that need to be taken care of by you. And you can't be spending all the time in between expending energy stimulating them. And then what happens, and what happened to me, but I didn't realize it until later, was that I was overstimulating her. So because I was playing things with music and sitting her up, and there was, a toy that was like hung up next to her, and she always had something kind of in her face and in her vicinity, or me. So what happens is, there's very sensitive beings that are so aware and geared towards absorbing and learning right from the beginning, they get overdone. And then she would cry even more in that late afternoon period. The whole afternoon was basically crying, me trying to get her to sleep, and overstimulated and overtired. So anyway, that was happening. And I had panic attacks. I was very, very, very discouraged. I felt like an absolute failure in something that I thought, people do this all the time and they're fine. What's the matter with me? And yes, my expectations of myself were high probably, but still it was devastating. And I happened to be reading, I don't know when I had time to do this, but I happened to be reading an article in this local parent magazine, and that mostly told about events in the neighborhood and everything. And it was about creativity, raising a creative child. And there was a quote from Magda Gerber, just this one little quote. It said, "Take the mobile off their bed, take care of their needs, and leave them alone." And that was completely different from anything I'd ever heard. I had the mobile on the bed. I was not leaving her alone at all. And so it intrigued me because it seemed like this person was quite confident. She knew what she was talking about. And I wasn't, for sure. And so I had in the back of my mind, there was a number to call for RIE, R-I-E, Resources for Infant Educators is that acronym. And I kept it. And one day, my daughter was about 3 months at that time, a little over 3 months. I called and they said, you can take a class that was about an hour away from me in Los Angeles where Magda was. And I thought, I can't do that. I'm never going to get there. And they said, there's another class that was quite close to me with someone else. So I went to that one. And she said, there was a few babies in the room. They were a little older than my baby. And some of them were actually scooting across the floor, just maybe like 3 or 4 babies. And my baby was younger. And the teacher said, just lie her down on her back on this blanket and you sit near her and just observe. And then the teacher was quiet. And there we were. Well, goodness, my daughter, 3.5 months, the classes were 2 hours at that time. And she, for 2 hours, was there awake on her back, just looking around, didn't even move her head that much, never seemed uncomfortable, seemed in fact quite relaxed and engaged, and just, I don't know, she wasn't doing anything. She sucked her thumb a little at one point and she stopped. And was completely content. And what happened there was I saw for the first time my daughter. I saw, there's a person right there. She has thoughts. She actually doesn't need me in her face. And I think she never really did it that long again. None of my children did. So I think she knew she needed to teach me a big lesson, or she was just so happy that I was out of her face that she was just soaking it up. But whatever, it was quite extraordinary. And I was fascinated by her and this person that I just wanted to know more and more about. And that was the beginning of me falling in love with this way of seeing that children do come into the world as people, and that they ideally deserve to be treated that way, as people with a point of view who are aware. And just because they aren't talking to us doesn't mean they aren't listening and learning and is human and have personhood like we do. So that's really the basis of this approach. And just to consider what that looks like, it would be the difference between, oh, I want to hold the baby, let me hold, passing the baby around to all the relatives who want to hold the baby, and saying, I don't know, is it okay if grandma holds you right now? And waiting that moment to see if my child stiffens up or turns away, and this you can do with a very young baby. But it's this welcoming of the person and opening the door to their participation in life. Instead of, there's a lot of things that we do to babies. Well, this approach says, don't do anything to your baby. You can do it with them. They can be a part of it. If you communicate, you're helping them to feel involved, that they matter, that their point of view matters, and that you're interested in it, and you want them to tell you things, or express how they feel. So it's that. I mean, some people do this naturally, I think, maybe. I did not. And it was so eye-opening, and just it made being with children so much more interesting when you realize there's stuff going on in there. And even there's so many tedious aspects of caring for young children, physically tedious. And this just added a whole layer of interest and mind engagement for me as a parent. That's why I called my site and my first book Elevating Childcare, because it just elevated it to something more than changing diapers, and just look over here so I can do this to you, and let me get this over with, or let's get this stuff over with as fast as we can. Instead, it was actually slowing down and waiting and letting my child know, I'm going to do this. And what happens is you start to see almost immediately, you get the feedback from the baby that, yep, I was here and I just needed you to be open to that and communicate with me. And once you do, you see that they are able to respond and in their way, and to their capabilities. And they are they're very open and ready for a relationship from the beginning.
I love that. I love the whole description of that, the unfolding of your story. And it really runs so counter to so much of what we're told about how you care for kids or engage with them. This idea that you're sharing about how children come into the world with their own selves and perspective and as their own beings. And yet so much of what we do with kids from babies on up is we do things to them, not with them, not in relationship with them necessarily, but to them. Like they're this blank slate that we have to constantly be writing on and pouring into, and us doing all of the directing. And what you're describing is really this lovely dance of the parent-child relationship, of engaging with them and moving their development forward in a together kind of way.
Yes, exactly. And we call it a dance, actually. And it takes so much pressure off. Oh my gosh. I mean, for me, you're just hearing my little story in the beginning, but it was these clouds lifted. No, was life easy with the baby? No, there's plenty of challenging things, but the relief of not having to fill my child up with these things that just felt so it just felt so random. It felt so, okay, really? Like a stimulator like this at this age and this, I needed like this overall way of seeing that is about trust.
Yeah.
And there's so much that we think we have to do as parents that we don't need to do. And it's better that we don't do. It's still a lot of work being a parent, but we make it harder on ourselves.
I think that that's so true. And especially, I'm thinking about our listeners now who have children who maybe have some additional developmental challenges, maybe have some sensory processing challenges or some communication or, behavioral regulation challenges. And I want to really have you as listeners tune into what we're talking about here with this idea of stepping back and stopping the constant stimulation and observing and being with as opposed to doing to. Because I think so often, especially when kids get identified as having some kind of need, there's this compulsion and this sort of sense of I have to do more, I have to stimulate more, I have to do more to my child to help compensate for this or help move them forward. And I find that very often the better path is to step back and do less, to observe, to tune in, to avoid the overstimulating, and then that builds a foundation for forward growth.
Absolutely. Yes, the observation piece, which is in the classes that we teach, which we haven't been able to teach since the pandemic, because they are in person with babies together and families together. In those classes, actually, Gerber used to say the only thing, or not, she didn't say the only thing, she said the three most important things we're teaching in our parent-infant classes are observation, observation, and observation.
Yeah.
So that was a light way of saying that this is it, and it doesn't come naturally, I don't think, to parents, because we tend to project. I mean, here's this person that's not talking, and they're ripe for our projections, right? So, and it's really hard not to, but when you start observing, you can start even becoming interested in your projections as seeing yourself. You're seeing, oh, wait, maybe she's not cold, I'm cold. Or, oh, she didn't go to use that object in that way, but I guess that's what I would do with it, or what I thought she should do, but she's doing something actually much more interesting. She's like staring at the inside of the, box top and checking out that there's a pattern in this that I never would have noticed, things like that, especially in nature, and that children can help us see the world in this wonderful, innocent way.
Mm-hmm.
And relive all these things that we just thought, oh, that's just a this or that's just a that. Well, actually look at this thing. Through our child, we can have these amazing experiences. But as you were saying, observation is the way to understand how to help our children if they're having difficulties, to understand what they're actually interested in as opposed to what we're interested in. And, therefore we can appreciate them more, appreciate what they are doing instead of just being in fear or discomfort for what we feel they should be doing. We can appreciate, and that's a big part of Magda's teachings is that let's see what our child, what they're actually interested in, or where they're at. A lot of times with motor skills, let's say, when parents tell me that they're worried about, or especially if they're in my class and I can see, and they're, oh, my child's not crawling on their knees yet, or my child isn't pulling up to stand. Well, look at how your child is moving. Your child has found a way to get to those toys that he wants,
right,
on his belly, with one arm, like mobilizing him forward. And look what he's doing, So the things that we look for, things like fluidity and comfort in their skin with what they're doing, that confidence that comes when they're trusted. And so this isn't to say, of course, children need interventions sometimes, if they have issues, they need interventions. But even then, with this approach, we do the least thing. So we do the smallest thing so that they can always do more and gain all the emotional, psychological benefits of achieving and being accepted also for where they are. Yeah. So I know those are the kinds of things that you do, trying to, and it's an interesting challenge as parents. And I would do this with typical children too, that, whether it's two children having a conflict or one child that's climbing and on something or feels stuck in some way, that's the least thing I can do. Start with that first. Sometimes that's verbalizing something like, maybe if you sounds like you're stuck, acknowledging where they are, or you feel like you're stuck, or you seem like you're having difficulty. Maybe if you move your foot down a little, you'll feel that bar below. So we're just telling them. So that would be the first level. And then they still are, now they're starting to get upset and they're not able to do that. So then I would say, I'm actually going to take your foot and help you find this. So then we're doing the smallest thing for them and physically. And then, so the last thing we want to do, which we sometimes have to do, is pick them up because maybe they're too tired and they can't do it. Generally, if they can get up on something, they probably physically could get down, but they may not be ready cognitively or emotionally to do it yet. And then if they're tired, then,
all bets are off.
Yeah, that's number one reason.
I love that idea, that concept of us inserting ourselves into challenging moments for our kids in the least intrusive way possible. I think so often parents rush in, and as you noted there, when we do that and we're doing the bulk of the work to repair or fix or problem solve, kids don't see themselves as able to manage those things, as capable of problem solving. They don't get that sense of confidence that comes from, oh, I figured it out. And so letting kids be in a little bit of the struggle and us being able to keep our own emotions in check and not over insert ourselves into those situations is really important.
Yeah. And spotting helps us do that too. So we know that we're there, we're not going to let them get hurt. And that's something I would say to a child too, is like, I won't let you get hurt. Sometimes they'll be reaching for you, like, just let me jump to you or let me take you down, because maybe a parent has been doing that or whatever, but that's actually going to make the child less safe. So I say, I see you reaching, I'm right here. I'm not going to let you fall, but I can't let you use me. That's not safe. I have to let you do this yourself. And, I'm here to keep you safe. So we aim for that so that they can get those benefits, because there are so many, the confidence that children build when they're trusted to achieve these skills is priceless.
Yeah, absolutely. And they need to be given the opportunity for that at whatever age. I'm thinking what you said about the parent, being in the role of, I'm not going to let you fall. I'm going to be here to guide, but I'm also not going to let you use me to fix this. Boy, does that apply to like every element of parenting until our kids are grown and independent, right? I'm here, I'm a resource. I'm not going to jump in and fix this for you, but I'm also not going to let, you get in over your head.
Right. And it takes restraint and I think one of the misconceptions is, with the RIE approach is you're just sitting back and letting everything happen. Actually, no, we're more attuned maybe than would be otherwise, but we are working hard to hold space for our child. We're, as adults, we are so magical to children. We're so powerful. We have all the power. We can fix it in a second. We can do anything. And I think we want to, or this approach definitely thinks we want to help give children as much power as possible to feel empowered to be themselves in the world and achieve in the things that they want to achieve.
Yeah, being in the role of guiding kids, which really is how I think about parenting. We're in this role of guiding. It's a tough role, and being more attuned means managing our own emotions and keeping ourselves out of things, that we're really doing more for our own needs as opposed to our kids. And nowhere does that come up more, I think, than when kids are struggling with emotions, with behaviors, whether it's meltdowns and tantrums, or, what we might consider disrespectful behavior, or whatever it is. It can be tough for us as parents to not make our emotions, our feelings, ourselves the center of that, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think that what helps us to unwind why we do make it about ourselves. And it's usually comes down to fear of some kind. Fear that my child is going to be, maybe it's just some primal fear of, I was yelled at for this, or I was punished for this. And so my child is, tapping into those feelings that I had with them doing this. Or I'm a terrible parent, and my child is going to be a terrible person if I don't make this stop right now and teach them a lesson somehow.
Right.
Instead of understanding that there's always a reason, and one of the bases for, I know your approach and Mona de la Hook's and mine, is that children are doing the best they can in any given moment. Young children. I mean, isn't that interesting?
Right.
And, we're going to probably figure out why our child is doing this later. And there's usually a good reason that has nothing to do with us as parents, or, that we're doing something wrong, or that our child is defective in some way. There's reasons, one of them is children they just put everything out there, they're feeling, I've had children in my classes that were infants, and they were already making a lot of sounds of displeasure, but not crying so much as, and we would realize, or, I would try to help the parents realize, you observe it and you see they're communicating every single thing that's bugging them. Like, this is or everything, it's not even bugging them. It's just they're communicating what's happening. Oh, I want that toy, or that, baby came a little close to me, or there's a new person that came in the room, or, so as parents, we worry, oh, my child is so unhappy. And no, they're just telling us that they're noticing things, and they have feelings about things, but it's not a crisis.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that you talk about quite a lot in your writings and, speaking, is about the importance of allowing children to feel how they feel, to recognize they have their own feelings. They are entitled to those. It's not our job or responsibility to try to change what it is they're feeling, or to bring our emotions into it. Can you talk a little bit about that? Just the fact that if a child is upset about something, it's not our job to try to make them happy about it, or to tell them that they shouldn't be upset or distressed, right? I mean, they're allowed to feel how they feel, and that's a hard thing for some parents.
It is hard. It is hard to trust, because so many of us were not raised that feelings, are any other feelings besides happiness, are okay to have. But we really want this message for a child, because that's what resilience is. That's what a happy life is. And there's a lot of people talking about this right now, and I'm so excited about that. Yeah. Susan David, even Brene Brown with all her vulnerability talks. But so this is the key, to be able to feel all the things in life. And I don't know, I'm just thinking of an example that I did a live recently, and I didn't get to answer this question because it wasn't really on topic, but it's stuck in my mind because it was sort of sitting there on the screen the whole time. And it was, how can I how can I explain to my child that it's okay to lose, like that there's positives in losing or whatever. And I understand that so much, this parent's point of view, but what we want to do is allow that child to feel how sad he feels about losing, because oftentimes, I mean, even if we don't think they should feel sad about losing a game, we have to realize that these experiences are with emotions. What happens is children get tapped into. And so the outside thing that's tapping in can be just almost symbolic of other things. It's not that my child is such a mess about losing and that their whole life they're going to be this person nobody ever wants to do anything with because they can't handle losing. And I mean, that's what we see as parents, maybe like, uh-oh, this is a problem. I got to fix this. But when we look closer, we realize this child maybe has a new younger sibling that was born, or they've had to move to a different house, or they had to leave the classroom of children that they loved, and now they have to start new. There's so many losses in life. I mean, growing up is about losing, right? We're always losing that stage to get to the next stage. And so if we can tell ourselves as parents that there's a reason children feel the way they do, that if we can trust, it will pass. It won't keep simmering and popping up and being there, it will pass. And there's a very valid reason our child feels that. It may not seem valid to us, but there is every emotion has validity for a child, and it's really okay and it's safe for them to feel all the feelings in life. And that's how they heal them. The feeling is healing. That's one of my things I would say. The feeling is the healing, and they can't heal it another way. The other thing that would happen is, don't be a bad loser. Like, it's fine to lose. All those things that we maybe want to do. And now what happens is the child still feels what they feel. We don't have the power to change anyone's feelings, including our own. We can't change feelings. They're just there. They have a life of their own. So we're not going to change the feelings, but we're going to teach that child not to trust their feelings, teach that child that they've got some wrong things going on, things that they feel or they shouldn't feel. So it's less trust for themselves. And that, we don't think it's safe to feel bad about anything, which means they can't feel safe when they have to feel sad about things or right. Feel lost.
Which is so much what life is, right? I mean, that's part of preparing. Like, life is not all unicorns and rainbows and happiness. And when we don't have children who learn how to feel and how to tolerate those sort of uncomfortable feelings, they grow up to be adults who don't know how to tolerate that very well either.
Right. And that's probably like 85% of us, I don't know.
Right.
As parents, or adults, that's so many of us. I think it's been going on for generations like this. So, but we can change this, but it is a lot of work. Yeah. It's so tough. I mean, and I actually do talks, like I've done keynotes that are all about this topic because it's such an interesting topic to me. The challenge to let feelings be. It never gets easy. I tell parents, it's still hard for me. If my kids are down, I want to say, oh, come on, I'll make it better. Don't feel like that. Of course I do. It's never going to be pure instinct for us to let somebody that we love feel not good. So it's a challenge that does get a little easier when you have experience with kind of the beauty of it and the magic of it, and seeing your child get to the other side of that, because you didn't put anything in his way when he was losing you. Like, oh my goodness, it's so sad to you, or you seem angry about it, and no, I'm not gonna let you throw this game pieces or whatever. Like I'm holding on to those. I gotta put these away. But yeah, you can be mad about that. You can be sad about that. And not just saying words, but really having our whole manner be accepting and welcoming of it, which I know this is the opposite of how most of us naturally feel. I agree. So, but if we can do that, like we see that it may never happen again, or we see our child in that moment get to the end of it and then he's fine. I love young children because they just turn around, like 1 minute they're like, the world is terrible. And the next minute they're like, what are we going to do? I mean, they really do that, and it's healthy, but we as adults, oh gosh, I had a great example of that. My middle daughter, who was in college at the time, she was home for the summer. And during that summer, this dog that she'd been especially close with, one of our family dogs, the only one we had at that time, suddenly was terribly disabled. Just something happened to her body. Nothing happened on the outside to her, and then we had to euthanize her. And in a way, it was great that my daughter was home for that. I mean, on one level, like that it didn't just happen while she was away. But oh my goodness, she curled up in a ball. She was on the floor in the hall of our house, and it seemed endless to me. She was just so sad, we buried the dog, just devastated. I thought, oh my goodness, I want to do something, but I've got to let her have this. And it seemed endless. It was probably 24 hours that she was just in deep pain. And all I could really do is come, by her sometimes and just touch her shoulder and say, I know. And, or just let her feel it. And then boom, she was laughing about the dog, all the good times we had. She was done. She got it. She went through it in 24 hours. And maybe it was even less than that, but it seemed like 12 days. And then I, with my less healthy fluid emotions, I was going through something about that dog for about a year. And it was so remarkable, like the difference that we can give our children where we trust. There's a reason. And you know what? Bring it on, because I want you to be able to share this. Get this out of your body. Get this out of your psyche. Share it with me, share it. Know that I'm a safe person for you to do this with. So many brilliant messages we can make if we can get into that headspace of emotions are the most positive thing that could happen when they come.
Such a great way to look at it. Some just really excellent examples there. I want to circle back to something that you said in the example of, let's say child who is getting really sad and distressed and frustrated about losing the game. And you said something in that, a parent to say, oh, you're so mad or you're so frustrated about this. And then you said, I'm not going to let you throw these pieces. I'm going to take them and put them over here right now. And I think that's a really important piece. And I want to hone in on that as we sort of shift to thinking about the importance of parents being in charge or having an overarching sense of control over a situation. Because so often when we talk about respectful parenting or we talk about these sort of approaches, the argument that's given is, you just let kids do whatever they want. There's no limits. There's no boundaries. The parent just gets walked all over, and nothing could be further from the truth. And so I'd love to have you talk about that role that we as parents play in guiding and setting limits and being in charge.
Right. You're right that there's nothing further than the truth. But unfortunately, yeah, parents do not just criticize that, but actually believe it. And then they go out into the world, or whatever, they have terrible difficulties.
Yeah.
But they feel that they're doing a respectful approach. Well, it all starts with boundaries. There isn't real true freedom without the boundaries in place.
Oh.
And so those are pretty much the most important thing. They have to come first. I talked a lot about trust, but even in terms of what we're talking about with observing a baby. So it's not going to work for me to observe this baby if there are things in their environment that I've got to say, no, stop. I'm constantly going to be interrupting. I'm going to be intervening. I'm not going to be able to observe this baby unless I have the boundaries, a safe environment. They're not going to be able to crawl off into the street or into something unsafe or inappropriate. And it's not just unsafe, it's like inappropriate. We don't want them in our drawer of our makeup drawer or whatever it is. Maybe we don't want them in, it's important that we don't let children do things like that we don't want them to do. It's important that we stop it right away and not get to the point where we're saying, oh, can you stop? Can you stop? Can you stop? Can you stop? Mm-hmm. And now I'm getting mad because I keep saying it and they're not doing it. Like oftentimes children will get kind of stuck in what they're doing. Even a 6-year-old can do this, or a 7-year-old or 8-year-old. They just need us to say, I'm going to take that away. Or let's say it's the TV remote or something. And, we got to put this away now. It's really time to be done. And doing it early. So that's the thing that I try to help parents with, and also being ready for the fact that if we see our child getting upset, that we know that this child usually throws things. So we're going to be right there. Maybe I have my arm on either side of her or him. And I'm going to make sure that those hands don't flail out. I'm just going to contain this behavior as best I can. Maybe I have to hold wrists. Mm-hmm. We want to do the least thing because we don't want to overdo things, but doing it early, help, right away when you see your kid, like let's say you have to leave somewhere or you have to go somewhere or get in a car seat or something. So we want to be respectful. The respectful part comes with communication. Mm-hmm. And us not getting mad, us doing it early so that we're still respectful and we're not so aggravated. We can't be respectful when we're aggravated. And the other part of that makes it respectful is they can feel however they want about it. Mm-hmm. They get to yell it in my face as I'm picking them up and placing them in the car seat. But what I saw was, okay, it's time to go. And I saw my child stop. I saw them look over to the side, or they want to keep playing, or maybe they're, it seems like they're not listening. So then I go over, okay, I'm going to give you a helping hand. Here we go. Right away. We don't repeat ourselves. I have a podcast about not repeating ourselves. We don't repeat ourselves. We don't wait for our child to do it. We want to wait that moment, mm-hmm. but we want to also learn, and a lot of this comes through observation too, that you're going to read. So you read stalling, you read, I think we were at this party too long. We don't get to go to parties anymore, but we're at the park too long. We're at the beach a little too long, and now they're getting tired. Transitions especially, we got to be on it. And then we can do it with that hero mode of, I'm being the great parent here. I'm being the papa bear, mama bear, mm-hmm. and I'm helping my child, get over this. And this, again, can happen with older children, especially if there's other transitions going on in their life. Mm-hmm. Every little transition can be hard. I still feel like this. So I can relate to toddlers. I'm still a toddler, I think. So I can feel that. I get invited somewhere and you know what, I don't have any clothes. Like I can't get out the door, but I really wanted to be there. I know that feeling, and children have that. So with other limits where they're hurting someone, one thing that we do is if we know our child seems to be going through something where they're hitting, then we're right next to them. It's sort of the same thing as where we're spotting. So we can be so comfortable at the climbing structure because we're there. We know we're not going to let them fall. So therefore we can be relaxed. We can be confident, be okay with it. It's the same thing with our child, with other children. We may have to be hanging out next to them if we know, my child's going through something where they go up and hit kids as soon as they see them. And there's a lot of reasons kids do that. It's somebody in their space, they're uncomfortable. It's always about discomfort of some kind. When children do any behavior that we don't like, they are uncomfortable on some level. It can be very dysregulated, deeply uncomfortable. It can be just this little discomfort of like, my parent just has a surprising response to this and they haven't quite let me know that they're comfortable stopping me, so I'm still doing it again. So it's that kind of minor level discomfort, but it's always some kind of discomfort. So my child is coming, I wanted to bring them to this group thing or with these relatives. I'm just going to be hanging out next to them. They go up and I'm going to be able to stop. If that hand comes up, I'm right next to them, but I'm not next to them tense. I'm next to them ideally confident. And then very matter-of-factly, I'm able to say, oh, I can't let you do that. I'm putting my hand there. And then maybe I can say something to help with the feelings, because there's always feelings, these uncomfortable feelings behind behavior. So maybe there's something I can say like that I noticed too about my child, like was that he was a little close, right? Like you were saying hi, I could say to the other child, but that it seems like that was too close for you. And for that child to feel understood, that we have their back, that we're safe, we're not against them and already mad at them going into this because they're going to do it again. If we can be that person, then we help children through these patches that they go through, and we see less of this. We see so much less of this. Being that safe person is not like number one, but doing the things that we need to do to be that safe person. So if I'm sitting across the room and I see my child, I can't be that safe person because they're already hitting and I'm going to be running in.
Right.
So I'm not the safe person. So we want to set ourselves up, and that's with our home environment, keeping it safe as possible. If we see our child's in a mood, we don't let them go in those rooms, that they can act out in or whatever, have different behavior in. So we want to set ourselves up for success.
That proactive stance is so important. And it strikes me as I'm listening to, you talking through some of those examples, how valuable that is from the standpoint of giving kids practice and experience with stopping themselves, with being aware of how they're feeling, with recognizing, oh, I was going to do this. And that's positive practice. So often what happens with these kinds of behaviors is we're practicing the negative after the fact. So we're trying to change the behavior by swooping in and reacting to something well after, it's happened. And that's far less effective than giving kids the experience of practicing stopping themselves and giving them guidance and support to regulate themselves in the moment.
Right. I mean, it actually can tend to make behavior worse, because now it's really hard to kind of give that after look with a manner that isn't lecturing, blaming, a little bit annoyed inside. It's really, really hard for us to do that. This isn't to blame parents. It's just really hard for us to do that. And if we realize that these behaviors do come from discomfort and therefore they're impulsive, they tend to be impulsive. And it's just like, sometimes I use the example, let's say that I told you to help me because I eat too much chocolate and I don't want to eat chocolate anymore. And I asked you to see if you could help me. And then, so now you weren't looking or whatever, and I found some and I took some and I got the chocolate. And the last thing that's going to help me is for you to say, Janet, you ate chocolate. You told me you didn't want to eat chocolate. Why did you do that? Or let's say I'm even saying it nicer, like,
right.
Janet, look what you did. What made you, feel like doing that? I don't know. I just did it. Like, you get a bag on me now?
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, so that's even with an adult. So imagine a child who's even more in the moment, even more impulsive, less able to exert self-control and regulate their emotions. We're asking a lot, and then it just doesn't help. And it can, if we're just looking at it from our end as parents, like trying to conserve our precious energy, which I totally believe in, then let's not waste our energy doing something that's not going to help and maybe make it worse.
Yeah. And
now our child feels more uncomfortable. Oh, my mom really hates me when I do this, or my dad, and like I did it again and I disappointed them, and I could see like they talked about it, just let it go and be there the next time. Learn from it ourselves. Now I just realized that I can't have chocolate like in the same room as Janet, because she might go for it. Well, I'm going to help her by putting it in a different room, or I'm going to be next to her when she's in that candy store.
Well, it's the setting up for success. It's saying, you can trust me that I'm going to be here to help you learn from this and be more successful with, as opposed to coming in after the fact and saying, why didn't you get it right? And I think we so often, as ridiculous as it sounds, we do this all the time with kids. We assume that they are able to think about and process things like we do as adults, or for young kids like older kids do. And that's not the case. They're not able to do that. And they need us to be there and setting those limits and proactively supporting them in the moment so that they can figure that out.
Right. And then I know parents worry, well, my child's already this age or that age, and when are they at what age can they self-regulate? And of course, the answer is sometimes they can, even in the first year. Sometimes a child can do it sometimes, but sometimes even as adults, we can't.
Right.
So of course, children, no matter how old they are, depending on the levels of stress they're feeling or discomfort, they won't be able to. So there's no time that we can say, okay, it's done. We're done. They're never going to need our help again. We can make it more likely that they can help themselves control themselves by practicing being that safe person and setting ourselves up and them up for success that way. So we're not adding to the discomfort.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. So we're not adding to what is already uncomfortable for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just one more thing I want to touch on, because I know we're going to have to wrap up here, but I want to ask you about this because it's something that you talk about often. And I think in the midst of this whole COVID pandemic situation, more than ever before, parents and kids are home together. Many parents are trying to work from home. Their kids are doing school. Even young kids are doing, things, or they're home with their little ones. And what I'm seeing is that many parents are feeling very stressed over this expectation they set for themselves that they have to be with and doing things with and entertaining their children constantly in the midst of this, or they're not doing a good job as a parent. And I'm wondering what you would say to parents who are feeling that way.
Well, I would say that I can relate. And my example of being a new parent is that's where it starts. And then it can continue, that we believe this is our job, that we believe this is our role, when actually as children get older, even, it's like when we're keeping them entertained, we're in a way misdirecting them, because they have a direction, they have an inner direction that we want to actually encourage and trust. And whenever we're directing them, we're shifting that. And we, again, are so powerful to them that even if we say, hey, do you want to take ballet class or something? Our child a little bit, maybe they have no interest at all in ballet class, but they kind of want to do it now because we brought it up like that, So this is just to say how powerful we are and how we can make it harder for children to be inner directed. But this inner direction is this precious thing that will lead our children to their passions in life and their careers and where they fit in the world and all these important things that so many of us grow up and we lose touch with. We can help children stay in touch with that. So there's so many good reasons not to use our precious energy to entertain. But what that sometimes means, if we've been caught up doing it and taking that on as our role, is our child has learned, like children learn by everything we do, that they're supposed to be entertained by us and that they can't entertain themselves. And it's not true, but in the transition to getting getting back in touch with their own ideas, and play is such a natural thing that we all have. It's not a natural tendency. It's not something that children can really unlearn, but they can get used to that. It's easier just to let somebody else think of things. And so in the interim, what I was going to say is there are going to be feelings.
Yeah.
There are going to be feelings. There are going to be tempers. There's going to be, if a child's older, there's going to be major guilt trips put on you. I can't, I have no one to play with, and I'm alone. Like children just know like all the things that will break our hearts.
Right.
It's their job. I mean, that's how aware they are and how smart they are. So they're going to throw everything in the book at us, and we ideally will welcome and say, oh, I know it's so hard when you can't think of anything to do. I know that feeling. It's really, really, really hard, but I believe in you. I think you will think of something. And so we're doing both. We're not just saying like, yes, you can do it. You can think of something, that's the don't feel what you're feeling approach.
Right.
So we can have that belief, but we're going to actually get much more it's going to help them much more if we just let them go to the depths of deep boredom.
Yeah.
Depths of deep boredom. And from those depths of deep boredom come ideas, come exploring self and creativity and joy, really, from within. So value that. It's going to be better for you, much more fun for you to be open to, oh my goodness, look what they did with those sheets that I was okay with them playing with, by the way. Look what they did with that. Oh my gosh, this guy has been he's wrapped that around himself in every different way. And, it's like an improv class. I don't know if anyone's ever taken an improv class where they say like, okay, take this brick and do all the things you can do with this brick. But children will do that. Yeah. But they'll show you some new way that you never ever thought of. So there's just so much more joy in store if we can take on our role as more of an observer and a facilitator of play. So we really, we see, they really need some big cardboard blocks or whatever. I'm going to go get those next time I can, or whatever. If we are able to do that, they don't really need most of the stuff they think they need, or that we.
It's true.
But we can facilitate, we can observe, we can be surprised, we can enjoy. And this isn't even sitting there watching them the whole time. This is like with the older children, we go away, they yell at us, oh, you're just being this terrible parent, abandoning me. And we're going to really have to see that for what it is, as this positive venting that's going on. And then, we see, oh my gosh, they come out of it. Just like my daughter with the
Right.
The dog, like they pop right out of it, and it's brilliant, and they're so happy they did.
And for them to learn that those feelings don't last forever, you can come through them and come out on the other side. That is a lesson that they take with them then into adulthood, where it is very much needed.
Yes. I mean, I remember this as a child. We had so many games. We invented, my sister and I, we would make lists of all the different things we could do. The games that we'd invented, basically. One was with my mother's shoes that she really didn't appreciate, but where we hid them all, and then you have to find a pair somehow in the dark, and we just everything, drawing stuff, games. Like we had so many different games, but I still remember we're bored.
Yep.
And it felt like the deepest pain in my soul to be bored.
Yes.
And I remember saying that to my mother, and she just, in those days, parents just, okay. And they went off and kept doing what they were doing. They didn't see that as a problem, but I remember the pain of it. Oh,
yeah.
It was a stabbing pain. So, and then we'd have we'd make up more wonderful games, and
that's right.
So it happens, it's just part of the creative process of play, really.
And giving kids the opportunity to be self-directed and have those opportunities. There are so many more things that I want to ask and that we could talk about, but I know that we're at the end of our time and we need to wrap up. So I want to make sure that you have a chance to tell people where they can find more of your work online. I know you've got janetlansbury.com. We'll have all these links in the show notes. What do you want to direct people to as far as resources where they can connect with you?
I think janetlansbury.com's got everything there. My podcasts are there with transcripts for people that prefer reading. And please know they're not articles. Sometimes people say, oh, that article. Like, I wouldn't have written that as an article. It's a transcript. But so everything's there. You can find the links to my books there. You can find my other recommendations. I have all kinds of books I recommend in my recommendations, and some of the play objects, and what else? And my articles, I have like 400 articles that I wrote before I started podcasting, especially. That's what I started doing online, was blogging or whatever. And so I've got pretty much I've been realizing that if I haven't written or podcasted about it, it's probably not something I feel I can advise on, because I have like more than 600 things there.
So many resources on your website. And also I want to point people to your social media, because you are very active on Facebook and Instagram also, right?
Yes, I'm on Instagram and Twitter. Yeah.
And you just provide such a wealth of information and things there. So I really want to encourage all of you listening to check Janet out on those resources. Again, we'll make sure those are all in the show notes. Janet, it was such a pleasure to spend time with you today, to have this wonderful conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
I loved every minute. Thank you, Nicole.
And thanks to all of you for listening. We'll see you back here next week for our next episode of the Better Behavior Show.
Thank you for listening to the Better Behavior Show with Dr. Nicole Beurkens. Leave a review on iTunes and share this episode with your friends. Visit drbeurkens.com to ask any questions for an upcoming episode, post comments for today's show, and sign up to receive weekly updates. That's drbeurkens.com.